5 major regional language centers for foreign language training, professional development for language teachers, technologies in language teaching and learning, language testing and assessment for university lecturers and high school teachers locally and nationally. Being a member of the University of Da Nang with 36 years tradition in education and research, udn-ufls has been an incubator for generations to pursue their dreams. Currently, the total number of university staff members is 324, including 8 professors, 34 doctoral degree holders, and 179 master degree holders. The majority of staff members hold a second master degree at many prestigious universities in the world. The university has been chosen by the government to be a key institution for implementing the missions assigned by the National Foreign Language Project and a center of excellence in foreign language training region-wide. The university has been assigned by the National Foreign Language Project to implement many important programs of its annual plan, including using technology in language teaching and learning, English for teaching, professional development for language teachers, innovative teaching for new English.
Giờ sáng rồi. Hello. Good morning, everyone. May I have your attention, please? Our program today is about to begin. Please have a nice seat. Thank you. On behalf of the University of Foreign Language Studies, the University of Da Nang, I would like to extend the most cordial welcome to all of you to a special seminar today. Using English for effective intercultural communication in the 21st century. The seminar is in collaboration with Victoria, University of Wellington, New Zealand, one of the great partners of our university. We appreciate everyone taking your time to join us this morning, although we're having a summer break. Now I would like to introduce to you our distinguished guests and special participants. From UFLS, UD, Associate Professor Dr. Nguyễn Văn Long, Vice Rector. Dr. Lê Thị Giao Chi, Dean of Faculty of Foreign Language Teacher Education. Dr. Võ Thị Kim Anh, Acting Vice Dean of Faculty of English. Dr. Lê Văn Bá, Acting Vice Dean of Faculty of English for Specific Purposes. Dr. Nguyễn Hữu Bình, Head of the Department of Academic Affairs. Dr. Nguyễn Hữu Quý, Head of Department of Personnel and Administrative Affairs. Dr. Lê Thị Phương Loan, Acting Vice Dean of Faculty of International Studies. Mrs. Nguyễn Phan Phương Thảo, Deputy Head of Department of Academic Affairs. Mrs. Phan Thị Yến, Deputy Head of Department of Research and International Cooperation. From Victoria, University of Wellington, New Zealand, it's a pleasure to welcome Associate Professor Jonathan Newton, our distinguished speaker for the seminar today. And nearly 100 teachers and students from Faculty of English, English for Specific Purposes, Foreign Language Teacher Education, and Faculty of International Studies. Once again, special thanks to all of you for your presence at the seminar this morning. And now I would like to invite on stage Associate Professor Dr. Nguyễn Văn Long, Vice Rector of UFLS UD, for the opening remark.
Jonathan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I am delighted to welcome all of you to the seminar entitled Using English for Effective Intercultural Communication in the 21st Century, co-organized by UD-UFLS, Vietnam, and Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. It's our honor to have the kind presence and active participation of Associate Professor Dr. Jonathan Newton, Program Director of Master of Arts in Teaching and Applied Linguistics, School of Linguistics and Applied Language Study, Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand, who will be the key speaker and facilitator of the seminar today. Please join your hand for Associate Dr. Jonathan Newton. As you may know, with the vision toward becoming one of the country's top universities, moving forward to the regional and international institute, University of Foreign Language Study, the University of Da Nang, udn-ufls, had the mission of training and research in languages, cultures, and civilizations, contributing to the cause of national development and international integration. Imbued with the educational philosophy, humanity, creativity, and adaptability, udn-ufls aims to train future professionals which possess solid professional knowledge and ethics, compassion, and willingness to explore the essence and knowledge of mankind and to integrate into multicultural, multinational working environments. In this regard, the seminar today is very important. It comes in the time when higher education institutions around the world are working toward reaching out across the borders so that their graduates will be able to thrive in the increasingly challenging world. In recent years, udn-ufls has promoted the cooperation with prestigious organizations, institutions, and universities in the regions and in the worldwide. Especially, it's our pleasure to cooperate with the Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, VUW. Given the outbreak of COVID-19 epidemic, VUW and udn-ufls has fostered their collaborative efforts via online discussion to agree to sign the Memorandum of Understanding on July 15, 2021, marking the cooperation of the two universities. More importantly, the Memorandum of Agreement on the Collaborative Program of Master of Arts in Teaching were also signed on the same day, leading to the first cohort of our collaborative program, Master of Arts in Teaching, being recruited in March this year. I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to Victoria University of Wellington for such effective cooperation, and it's our hope and strong belief that in the near future, there will be even more cooperation programs for staff, lecturers, and students of the two universities. My special thanks also go to Associate Professor Dr. Jonathan Newton, Program Director of Master of Arts in Teaching and Applied Linguistics, School of Linguistics and Applied Language Studies, Victoria University of Wellington, for your visit to udn-ufls and outstanding work for the success of this seminar. We wish you a productive trip in Vietnam and a memorable, enjoyable stay in Da Nang City, a beautiful coastal city and also one of the most worth-living cities in Vietnam and in the region. I strongly believe that through this youthful seminar, udn-ufls learners, graduate students, undergraduate students will gain useful and valuable knowledge on how to use English in effective intercultural communication in the 21st century. Finally, I would like you all good health, happiness, and the seminar today a great success. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Associate Professor Long. Could you please remain on stage for a moment? It's my great honor to invite on stage Associate Professor Jonathan Newton to receive the souvenirs and flowers from our university as a token of our appreciation. Thank you. Thank you, Associate Professor Nguyễn Văn Long and Associate Professor Jonathan Newton. Coming up next is what we've been looking forward to. What makes you wait any longer? Let's start our seminar on the topic of using English for effective intercultural communication in the 21st century by Associate Professor Jonathan Newton. Associate Professor Newton is Associate Professor and Program Director for the Master of TESOL and Master of Applied Linguistics program at Victoria, University of Wellington, New Zealand. In his career in language teaching education, he has worked alongside teachers from many countries to better understand classroom language teaching and learning, especially in relation to task-based language teaching, teaching listening and speaking, teaching vocabulary, and teaching for intercultural capabilities. He has published more than 70 book chapters, articles, and 5 books. And now may we have on stage Associate Professor Jonathan Newton. Please give a big applause to welcome him. Yeah, Professor, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Let me just test my slides. Well, thank you very much. I'll go on the stage for a little while. Thank you very much for the welcome and for the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time for me waiting to come to visit your famous city and your university, and it's very exciting that our two institutions can collaborate together, and I'm delighted to be a small part of that collaboration. So thank you all very much. I'll just test my... Yep, that's good. Okay, that's working. So I'm glad to be here. I'm also lucky to be here. Why am I lucky? Because 2 weeks before I came, 3 days before I came to Vietnam 2 weeks ago, I went over the handlebars of my bicycle and landed on my face and pushed my front teeth in. So I thought, am I going to come to Vietnam or not? I came, and it's kind of getting a bit better. Second, when I was in Ho Chi Minh, I was taking a Gojek motorbike, and I had my hands on the back, and another motorbike came behind and crashed into my hand, and I was saved by my ring. So I almost lost a finger. So I'm lucky to be here because I seem to be accident prone at the moment. All right. So I'm here to talk to you about intercultural learning, intercultural language learning, and why that is an important part of our roles and responsibilities as language teachers. I said to the Vice Rector long before he asked me, how long will your talk be? And I said about 3 hours. I was joking. I've got 30 minutes, but I might take a bit longer than 30 minutes if you don't mind. All right. How many of you have been teachers in some way or other? You've taught English? Put your hand up. I think many of you. And all of you have learnt English. I want you to think for a moment about culture. Think about the last lesson that you taught, or a lesson that you taught. Think about, where was culture? Where was it? What was it? What was culture in your lesson? Was it visible or invisible? Visible. Was it, tangible or intangible? Yeah. these are some of the questions I want you to have in your mind as I talk to you today. Where is culture in your teaching? What is it? And why is it there? And what purpose is it performing? I don't need notes, but I've got a couple of questions here that I might want to refer to. I think sometimes teachers of English who are not native speakers think that, oh, I can't teach culture because I'm not a native speaker. Or I can't teach culture because I haven't lived in an English-speaking country. And I think both of those propositions are wrong. Every teacher of English is a teacher of culture. Whether they know it or not, they are implicitly teaching or reinforcing cultural values. So you are, as a teacher of English, also a teacher of culture. And my encouragement today is to help you to see that more clearly and to understand what potential lies in your teaching to enrich the cultural understandings of your students. In other words, to develop their intercultural capabilities or competencies. Here's what a teacher of Mandarin Chinese said about the struggles of her learners. I think the reasons why students cannot speak fluently in real situation because they've only learnt from book. They don't bring real life to classroom. English is outside of them. It's an object. It's a thing that you have to fight with. Rather than being part of their identity, rather than being a living, dynamic part of their way of being in the world. And that's what intercultural teaching can do. It can bring language into a meaningful relationship with who you are. Am I clear enough? My voice is... This is a New Zealand accent. I want you to look at this example from a textbook. This is from a textbook used in a Vietnamese university called Listening Advantage. Has anybody seen this textbook? In the listening class, they have to listen to these dialogues, right? 4 dialogues. One's about a company event, a wedding, a birthday, a club meeting. And the people organising parties. And the dialogue looks like this. Now, it's a made-up dialogue. It's not real. Okay, so the students listen. Now, what does the lesson focus on? Well, let's have a look. Listen for the requests. Did they reserve the places they want? Yes or no? So what are you listening for? Go back here. Did they reserve the place they wanted? Yes or no? What are you listening for? Information. You're focusing on for information. But what else is present here? There's a lot of relationship work going on. There's a lot of negotiation. There's a lot of cultural assumptions about how we manage our social face. I'm terribly sorry. I don't care who made the mistake. Whew. That's kind of aggressive talk. We appreciate you're a customer and we assure you. So there's a lot of language here which is not about information, it's about building relationships. And we build relationships through language in culturally specific ways. And if your ways of building relationships are different from mine, there's a good chance you will misinterpret me, and I will misinterpret you. We're going to come back to that example in a minute, towards the end, so just remember that example. What's the point I'm making? Language is more than information. It carries culture. All right, let's go on. Across the world, our education systems are being encouraged to address 21st century skills. In workplace environments, employers often say the graduates with English have got a reasonable command of English. The problem is they're not very good at managing communication in the workplace. And perhaps the soft skills need to be developed. And so there's a big push internationally in education as we're learning subject knowledge, whether it's science or geography or English, to also build in our students, build in all of you, richer, deeper, wider capabilities to do with communication and creativity and collaboration and problem solving. And I'm sure you're familiar with many of these terms. And my proposition today is that adopting an intercultural stance in your language teaching allows you to connect into 21st century skill building. I hope I will convince you of that. Now, to do that, I'm going to take you through some snapshots of cultural and intercultural competence, and then I will turn my focus on language teaching. But I want to just present about 5 snapshots, which I think are kind of interesting. Okay? The first snapshot is from this book by a Chinese artist. I want you to look at this. What do you see? There's a cultural comparison here. Turn to the person next to you and ask the question, what's the difference that you see here? What's the cultural difference? I mean, you've got behavior, but behind the behavior, there's some other values, right? So what's the behavior and what are the values? Talk to somebody next to you. Everybody should be talking or listening. Go. This is supposed to be a workshop. All right. So what's the difference in behavior? Maybe. Yeah. Right. Okay. I'm just going to put the microphone down for a minute so you can hear my voice without a microphone. What's the difference? Does somebody want to... Yeah?
Hello. So I think the difference here is that when the language is presented in English, which is at school, the student is not supposed to consider the roles between the teacher and the student. Like they're free to just express their opinion without considering which role they're in. But in the language of Chinese, which is quite traditional, and the roles are actually really emphasized. So the teacher and the students are in different roles, in which the teachers play the more dominating roles, and so the students are supposed to respect these teachers by just not doing the thing as pointing out it directly, but just to ask for permission to come up and express their opinion.
Thank you very much. That was a really full answer. Thank you. So what you've identified there, some roles of students and teachers in this example. I mean, what I can see, I think similarly, you've got on one hand students who are encouraged to say, teacher, pick me. Teacher, I've got the answer. And the other context where the students are, oh, I have to be humble, and I should avoid showing that I'm too proud or too willing to stand out. So you've got these cultural values that lie behind behaviors. And you've picked out something there based on your understanding of East and West. So you've kind of dichotomized, there's a kind of an Eastern preference for humility and a Western preference for individuality and, pushing yourself forward. Now, I want you to look at another picture. Now, imagine you come from that culture. That's Spain. Who do you think those people are? So that's the far right-wing kind of fascist party in Spain. This is like the fascist signal. This is a political signal. I'm part of this party. So when I showed this picture to a Spanish teacher, what did she see? She didn't see what you saw. She saw something very different because of her cultural position. She saw this as being a fascist symbol of politics. She saw but then she saw the finger, and she was thinking, the finger. That's interesting. So she was struggling to interpret it. And the point there, of course, is that we interpret our world through our cultural lens. There is no gaze from nowhere. Every view is positioned. The way you see the world is positioned by who you are as a Vietnamese person and through the lens of your life experience. Number two, so that was the first snapshot about culture and how it influences so much of our mind. The second is an example from Japan. This is Hiroshi Mikitani, and he, at the time, ran one of the biggest internet retail sites in Japan. And here's a speech that he gave, and I'm just going to read part of his speech. 5 years ago, this is from 2016, 5 years ago I stood before several thousand, mostly native speakers of Japanese, and addressed them in English. From now on, I told them, Rakuten, his company, of which I'm the Chief Executive Officer, will conduct all of our business from official meetings to internal emails in English. I still remember the shocked expressions on their faces. Their reaction was understandable. No company in Japan had ever done this. He made English the official language of the company. Now, what I'm interested in is what effect did that have on culture? We're looking at the language-culture relationship. And here's what he said. After a time, a new casual vibe permeates our office. Employees happily shun the monotonous navy suit, typical of the Japanese workplace. This diverse and modern approach is breathing new life into our moribund work culture. So what happened? In this case, Mr. Mikitani introduced a new language, and the new language led to culture change. How? How can language lead to culture change? Well, in the Japanese language, there's a very hierarchical list of honorifics. You have to refer to people by their status, by their age. You know, the language is very sensitive to status, high status, low status. English is a more informal language. So if you start using a more informal language, it permeates the culture. And as he said, after a while, people stopped wearing their suits to work. They started to dress more casually because they were speaking more casually. Their identity shifted as their language use shifted. So language, identity, culture, all bound up together. Whew, I'm going to take 3 hours after all. Number three, The tall poppy syndrome. Who's heard of the tall poppy syndrome? I think in many cultures you have this value. If one flower grows too high, it gets chopped off. Can you think of something like that in Vietnamese culture? Yeah? Okay. In New Zealand culture, let me just tell you a little bit about New Zealand. If anybody's going to come to New Zealand, here's some things you should know. Appearance of equality is valued. We like to treat people as equal. We don't like to highlight status. Status differences are mitigated in interaction because we use personal names. Call me Jonathan, don't call me Professor. Let's be casual together. People shouldn't boast of being too good. We don't like that. And we try to maintain norms of informality and indirectness. And there are similar norms in Australia. Scandinavia's got a particular word for this. It's called janteloven, and Japan, etc. All right, now let's look at a dialogue. This is a migrant to New Zealand from Russia, whose name is Andre, and talking to Camille. Look at the dialogue. This is somebody communicating in English with Russian values, with Russian communicative values and social values. What do you notice? They are proud of their achievements. They like to talk about their achievements. I was involved, for the International Monetary Forum, very big. I was a team leader, right? They're proud. But the New Zealander, look at the reaction here and here. It's, oh wow, that was quite big word. Quite big work. Quite. Quite is what we call in pragmatics a kind of a softener. A downtoner, right? That's quite big work. It's not, oh, that's very big work. It's down. We like to just bring it down. And then, I was very big, I was a team leader. Oh, right. Right? You can see that cultural values are wrestling against each other in this very simple dialogue. So we're always doing this kind of work. I'm just going to skip over that. We're going to run out of time. So what does this tell us about culture? Culture is variable, it's contested, it's ever-changing, it's incomplete. And sometimes as language teachers, we fall into the trap of teaching about British culture or American culture as if it's a thing which is fixed. But it's not. There are hundreds of different British cultures and American cultures and New Zealand cultures. There are norms, but there's also diversity. Douglas Murray talks about culture as being a fragile ecosystem. And I want you to think of your Vietnamese culture as a fragile ecosystem. Yes, it has been sustained over centuries, hundreds of years, but there's something about it which is fragile. Let me skip over that. The traditional view of culture, the iceberg model, says that we've got behaviours on the top and all these implicit cultural values underneath. But I think that's a problematic metaphor. I like to see culture like this. Drawing on a chaos complexity model. Do you know what this is? This is a school. I've forgotten the word. These are thrushes. These are birds that fly as a flock, and they create this shape. And it's always changing. It has patterns, but it's always changing. And around the edges, it's quite fluid. Influences come in and go out. And I think that's what modern cultures are like. They're moving and changing. They're not fixed. Snapshot 4. I'm running out of time. I was in Singapore a few years ago at the hotel. I was leaving my room to go to breakfast, and I passed the maid in the corridor. And I said, this is what I said to her. Look at the language I'm using. What does that tell you about me as a cultural person? Remember, I'm the professor, and the maid is just the kind of, in terms of status, I'm the guest and she's the worker. I see I've put some of you to sleep already. What does it tell you? Remember, we talked about New Zealand culture being egalitarian. We kind of have this norm of equality. This is me inviting the maid to clean my room, not telling her, because that violates my communicative norms in my country. So I'm using language. You are welcome to clean my room if it suits you. Really, behind that, I was saying, please clean my room now. But I was presenting it as if we are kind of equals. And she says, I finished, come, okay. Perfect. She understood the message. Every time we speak, we are committing a cultural act. Every time we communicate, we're constructing culture or changing culture. Snapshot number 5. I think I might skip over snapshot number 5. It's kind of complicated. Take too long. So, just for the last 5 minutes or so, having given you those snapshots, I've tried to encourage you to think about culture and the way it's woven into language and the way it influences our behavior in interesting ways. So what? So what? For you as language teachers and language users, English language users. Well, I think we have to address intercultural capabilities or competencies in the classroom. We have to give learners the skills to manage difficult communications across cultures. We have to help them understand their own cultural preconceptions. We have to encourage our learners to become aware of the implicit, hidden cultural values. And we have to help them with the attitudes that might be unconscious, and we need to bring those attitudes to the surface. You will be aware of this, of course, that around the world now, the majority of the uses of English is between non-native speakers. So native speakers like me are a minority group in terms of using English. It might be a German factory, a German engineer working in a Thai factory and using English to communicate. It might be a Malaysian IT factory manager talking to an American software developer. These thousands and thousands of interactions every day in English between people for whom English is not their first language. And so as a global lingua franca, English is no one's language, or what amounts to the same thing as everyone's language. And this increases the need for intercultural capabilities. So how do we develop intercultural processes? Now I just want to spend the last 5 minutes looking at textbooks and teaching. Here's an old section from the Headway English series. This is a traditional way of talking about culture. And what do you see here? You see a very culturally narrow, stereotypical view of what an English person looks like. And it's a man, a white man with a white wife, with 2 children and a dog in front of a brick house. How many British families are like this? Probably not many. But you can see the danger if this is the way culture is represented to your Vietnamese students. That's Britain. No, it's not. It's nothing like Britain. You go to London, and it's hard to see a person with a white face. You know, it's a very diverse, rich, complex culture. I'm just going to skip over that one too because of time. So I think there's two things I want to focus on with you to finish off. As language teachers, it's very easy to get your students to look out at the other culture. Let's learn about Britain or America or Australia. But from an intercultural perspective, the starting place is looking in. How do people see me? Let me try and understand myself from the position of somebody else. And that's perhaps the more profound intercultural learning moment. For example, here's an example from a Cambodian textbook, which beautifully illustrates this point. If a foreigner came to your house for dinner, what would you cook? What would you cook? What kind of thinking do the students have to do? Just think about this. What kind of position do they have to take in relation to their identity? So here's me as a Cambodian kid. This activity is asking me to move over here and imagine I'm a foreigner coming to my house, right? It's asking me to move out of my identity and to think of myself as the other. So this process of othering ourselves is one that really enriches us interculturally. What would they like? What would they find strange? When I did this activity with kids in New Zealand, they talked about, if you had Japanese kids coming to your school and you took them for lunch, what would they find strange? And the kids say, yeah, they probably find strange that we eat all our food with our fingers. So the students had to think of themselves from the outside perspective. When some of our students went to Japan, young teenagers, for an exchange visit, and they had to take the shoes off inside the house, in New Zealand, traditionally, people don't do that. They came back home, and they took their shoes off inside the house. They felt like, I don't want to wear my shoes in the house anymore. I've experienced another way of being in the world. Once people recognize that they are truly products of their own cultures, they're better prepared and more willing to look at the behaviors of other people. The danger, if we look out at other people first, we go towards stereotypes. And I think we need to understand stereotypes of ourselves so that we become more sensitive to the tendency to stereotype other people. So that my final point, it's not number 4, it's never mind, is I think we need to give learners an opportunity to make sense of experience, of communication, and to reflect on it. So imagine you're learning Chinese, you bump into a friend you haven't seen for a while, role play your greeting. Do it in your first language, do it in Vietnamese. Now, listen to how a couple of Chinese students do it. And then practice the dialogue. And now take this role play in Chinese and turn it into English. And see how it feels. And it's quite different. So this is different from this. The language is the same. Role play 1 and role play 3. The language is the same, but the cultural values are different. We're coming back to this one, remember? Remember the emphasis on information. Now, this is what Thao Trang, my Vietnamese PhD student, did. Here's the conversation again. And she wanted, in her listening classes, to help her students think interculturally. She wanted these values to come to the surface in her teaching. So here's the lesson plan that she developed, and she worked on this through her whole PhD. First of all, make a hypothesis about, if you've got a conflict in communication, make a hypothesis about Americans, about how they would communicate. For example, Americans are more straightforward than Vietnamese. That's a hypothesis. Now, in small groups, role play the scenario. So you can do it in Vietnamese or you can do it in English, but develop your role play before you listen to the transcript. And then have the groups share their role plays and notice the differences. And then finally, step 4, listen to the textbook dialogue. So what you've done there is you've got students to engage in their own cultural values and think about the context and think about how the context leads to certain ways of communicating, try it out, and then compare it to the native speaker way of doing things. And so what you're doing here is you're putting in place intercultural learning opportunities. But you're doing it in the process of getting students to think about language and communication. And then reflect on the differences and come back to the hypothesis. One more example and then I'll finish off. And notice with these examples, we're not replacing language learning with intercultural learning. We're bringing them together. We're bringing them together. All right, look at this example. And if we had a workshop, I would probably get you to do this because it's a really fun activity. So, split the class into 2 cultures. So you can be the alpha culture and you can be the beta culture. And all students have to come up with an English name and an English job, an imaginary job, and how old they are, and so forth. And in this culture, these people, they are told that these are their cultural values. And the beta culture are told that these are their cultural values. But the alpha group doesn't know about the beta group values, and the beta group doesn't know about the alpha group values. So they then have to get together in pairs and have a conversation. They have to have the conversation while practicing these kind of values. This is a really interesting way to get students to communicate in English, to have really great speaking opportunities, but also to explore culture. So I hope some of you one day might try something like that. All right. Summary. If we're engaging in language interculturally, and I think I would argue that really, to do justice to language, the only way to deal with language is interculturally. If we don't deal with it interculturally, I think we're missing a large dimension of what language is and what communication is. So we go from describing to comparing. We're not only asking what's the difference, but why is it different? We go then from asking why is it different to what do I feel? What are my judgments? What are my judgments about the student who goes like this? Or the rather direct approach of a native speaker? Or the rather casual, informal way of talking? What do I feel about it? Let's look at our feelings and our judgments. And then from asking how do I see them to how might they see me? Remember I talked about, the students in Cambodia having to look at their family dinner from the perspective of an American. How might they see me? From comparing to understanding, and then from judging to empathy. And it's empathy which is the value we're aiming for here. The real voyage of discovery consists not of new landscapes, but in having new eyes, new ways of seeing the world. Marcel Proust. And the last point I would make. I hope the examples I've shown you will encourage you to see intercultural learning as not separate from language learning. Not separate, but actually enriching it. We explore culture in and through language, and we explore language in and through culture. And in doing that, we're strengthening the language learning of our students, we're strengthening their communicative abilities, and we're strengthening their 21st century skills for functioning in a world which is changing very rapidly. So on that note, I'm sorry I've talked a little bit too long, but I would just like to thank you for your attention, and I hope you've gained something from today's talk.
Hello. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Jonathan Newton. On behalf of the teachers and students from UFLS, we would like to express our sincere thanks for your interesting and insightful presentation on the topic of English and its use in intercultural communication in this new era. I'm sure that the participant students this morning will find it useful for their major at this content is part of their courses on cultures and intercultural communication. And next, let's enjoy the performance from UFLS students.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, to all of the teachers and professor and everyone in audience. My name is Tâm. I'm going to be a senior in primary English language teaching next year. So today my performance is singing with a song called A Million Dreams. I hope you enjoy. Close my eyes, then I can see the world is waiting up for me, that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say you don't sound crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care if they call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams on it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we gonna make. There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say you don't sound crazy. They can say we lost our mind. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to the world that we reside. Every night I'm lying in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. What the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams on it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. However big, however small, let me be part of it but say that you bring me along to the world you see, to the world I close my eyes to see, I close my eyes to see. The brightest colors fill my head, a million dreams are keeping me away. Think of what the world could be, the thinking of the one I see, a million dreams are keeping me away. A million dreams for the world you stand. Thank you very much. And the next performance is an instrumental performance. It's called Folk Song Medley. Hope you enjoy.
thank you for your performance. And next, may you have on stage Mrs. Nguyễn Phan Phương Thảo, Deputy Head of Department of Academic Affairs, to talk about introduction about collaborative program of Master of Arts in TESOL.
No, I don't. Sometimes when I take my mask, parts of the class I spend standing up. When I'm seeing, the students have been sitting for 20 minutes, I think, let's all stand up and have an activity where we're talking. We're doing it standing and not sitting. And it's interesting how standing changes the kind of relationships in the class. We can sit down and walk or we can walk.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn. Hy vọng là các bạn đã có một buổi lắng nghe hội thảo chủ đề của thầy Jonathan và tiếp nhận được nhiều thông tin thú vị. Phần tiếp theo thì cô xin thay mặt phòng đào tạo giới thiệu với các bạn về chương trình liên kết đào tạo thạc sĩ chuyên ngành phương pháp giảng dạy tiếng Anh. Trên slide có cả thông tin tiếng Anh lẫn tiếng Việt và xin phép được trao đổi bằng tiếng Việt để các bạn có thể hiểu rõ hơn những cái thông tin của chương trình chúng ta. Chương trình liên kết với cơ sở đào tạo nước ngoài trình độ thạc sĩ chuyên ngành phương pháp giảng dạy tiếng Anh dành cho các ứng viên đã tốt nghiệp đại học hệ chính quy, ngành ngôn ngữ Anh hoặc là sư phạm Anh. Và nếu các bạn tốt nghiệp các ngành hoặc chuyên ngành có liên quan thì các bạn sẽ được xem xét tùy trường hợp cụ thể. Nếu như các bạn đã có bằng đại học do cơ sở nước ngoài cấp bằng thì hãy thực hiện công nhận văn bằng trước khi các bạn nộp đơn cho chương trình. Khi hoàn thành chương trình này thì các bạn sẽ được cấp bằng thạc sĩ cấp bằng thạc sĩ chuyên ngành phương pháp giảng dạy tiếng Anh do trường Đại học Victoria University của Wellington, New Zealand cấp. Như vậy là chúng ta sẽ được cấp bằng của trường Victoria, mặc dù là chúng ta có thể học tại Việt Nam và học tại New Zealand. Chương trình học kéo dài từ 18 tháng cho tới 24 tháng tùy theo khả năng hoàn thành khóa học của học viên. Và chương trình được triển khai theo hình thức trực tiếp kết hợp với trực tuyến. Học viên sẽ hoàn thành tổng cộng 12 khóa học, gọi 12 học phần, được chia làm 3 học kỳ. Trong đó có 4 học phần đầu tiên các bạn sẽ học do các thầy cô của trường Đại học Victoria giảng dạy theo hình thức trực tuyến. 4 học phần tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ học do các thầy cô của trường Đại học Ngoại ngữ giảng dạy theo hình thức trực tiếp hoặc trực tuyến. Và 4 học phần còn lại thì các bạn sẽ học trực tiếp tại New Zealand. Và các bạn sẽ sang New Zealand học tại trường Victoria đối với 4 học phần cuối cùng này. Giới thiệu với các bạn danh mục các học phần có trong chương trình học của chúng ta. Trong này thì sẽ bao gồm các cái học phần bắt buộc và các học phần tự chọn. Các cái môn học này nó rơi vào các cái khối kiến thức như là thực hành giảng dạy, về nghiên cứu khoa học, về kiểm tra đánh giá, hoặc là hiểu biết về ngôn ngữ cũng như là hiểu biết về quá trình học ngoại ngữ. Như vậy trong chúng ta có nhiều học phần và các bạn sẽ được lựa chọn những cái học phần mà chúng ta yêu thích. Chúng ta có 2 phương thức tuyển sinh đối với chương trình này. Thứ nhất là xét tuyển và thứ hai là tuyển thẳng. Những bạn sinh viên nào đã tốt nghiệp loại giỏi trở lên và các bạn đáp ứng được điều kiện văn bằng như đã nêu phía trước, có điểm IELTS hoặc là các cái chứng chỉ quốc tế khác có mức tương đương từ 6.5 của IELTS và còn thời hạn trong vòng 2 năm thì các bạn sẽ được tuyển thẳng. Đối với hình thức xét tuyển thì các bạn đáp ứng được điều kiện văn bằng và tốt nghiệp đại học loại trung bình khá trở lên, có chứng chỉ ngoại ngữ quốc tế tương đương với IELTS 6.5 và còn thời hạn thì các bạn sẽ được xét tuyển. Về hồ sơ dự tuyển thì các bạn sẽ có tải mẫu đơn đăng ký và kèm theo mẫu đơn thì các bạn sẽ đính kèm sơ yếu lý lịch có xác nhận của chính quyền địa phương. Trong đó có dán ảnh, đóng dấu dắp like và các bản sao về bằng tốt nghiệp cũng như là bảng điểm đại học của các bạn có công chứng. Bản sao chứng chỉ IELTS của các bạn còn thời hạn. Các bạn cần nộp thêm thư giới thiệu từ thầy cô hoặc là giáo viên hướng dẫn của các bạn, cũng như là cần có một xác nhận kinh nghiệm giảng dạy 2 năm. Thì đối với lại là giấy xác nhận kinh nghiệm 2 năm, tại sao lại cần? Bởi vì trong quá trình các bạn học thì nó sẽ yêu cầu các bạn cung cấp rất là nhiều, liên hệ rất là nhiều tới cái việc giảng dạy thực tế của các bạn. Thành ra là việc chúng ta đã từng có giảng dạy thì nó sẽ rất hữu ích cho quá trình học của các bạn. Nếu các bạn gặp khó khăn trong việc xin giấy xác nhận thì các bạn có thể xin tư vấn tại nhà trường. Các bạn liên hệ phòng đào tạo thì sẽ được hỗ trợ và tư vấn về cái việc xác nhận kinh nghiệm này. Và đồng thời thì chúng ta cần có một ảnh 3x4. Như vậy thì bộ hồ sơ đăng ký dự tuyển cũng rất là cơ bản. Nếu các bạn cần thêm những thông tin gì thì các bạn có thể hỏi trực tiếp ngay tại hội trường này. Xíu chập nữa thì sẽ có các cái thầy cô đến từ các bộ phận khác nhau sẽ giải đáp những cái thắc mắc của các bạn và cung cấp thêm thông tin. Đồng thời thì các bạn vẫn luôn luôn có thể liên hệ với nhà trường thông qua phòng đào tạo số điện thoại 3699-325 hoặc email đến phòng đào tạo a.ufl.udn.vn để được giải đáp những cái thắc mắc của các bạn. Như vậy rất mong là nhận được những cái câu hỏi, sự quan tâm của các bạn. Cảm ơn các bạn đã lắng nghe. The next part, I would like to introduce Associate Professor Dr. Jonathan Newton will introduce about Victoria University of Wellington and the training programs.
Okay, thank you. I'm just looking for my bag. Did my bag go somewhere? My bag. My bag was there. Did somebody, oh maybe it's under, is my bag underneath? I don't, oh okay, excuse me. Okay, well, it's me again. How are you? How many of you have got assignments to write? Who's got assignments to write? Yeah? Okay, thank you for coming. You know, I know when you come to something like this, you are giving up something else to come here. And that's a sacrifice. So thank you for coming this morning. I'll try not to waste too much of your time. And I'll try to encourage you to keep your eyes open and not fall asleep. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Victoria University and about our program, and then open up for any questions you have. So the university is 125 years old this year. I'll turn it on. It's based in Wellington, which is New Zealand's capital city. It's a harbour city, like Da Nang, so it's got, you know, a lot of quite beautiful harbour views. You can see this is where we are. It's the centre of government, and it's considered to be the cultural capital of New Zealand. It's got a very vibrant arts scene. And it's kind of a beautiful city, although it's very windy, and in the winter it's very cold. It's a creative city, so it's where Peter Jackson has the big studio where they produce the Avatar movies, and you're probably too young, but Lord of the Rings, anybody seen Lord of the Rings? The Hobbit? So that when they were making the Lord of the Rings, sometimes I could see them up in the forest behind my house filming some of those scenes. This is a view from just close to my office, looking down across the city, across the harbour. So the university is accredited with international accrediting agencies, and it's considered to be New Zealand's leading research university, according to current PBRF measures. We've got a number of campuses: Te Aroha campus, Pipitea campus, Kelburn campus, all around the city, so very central to the Wellington CBD, Central Business District. The university year is structured slightly differently from your university year. Trimester 1 starts in February, and it's 12 weeks plus an exam period, and it ends in June, July, and then there's a break. Then trimester 2 begins in July and goes through until October, and then trimester 3 begins in November and goes through into the next year in February. Right? So the academic year traditionally begins in February. But students can join the program in July or in November. So you can join at any time. The university has a large number of people working to support students, involved in counselling and academic support, student finance, careers advisors. So the university is very committed to helping students when they're on campus across all aspects of their lives. Okay, I work within, my department is in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, which is the biggest faculty in the university, and it's a highly ranked faculty internationally. I think it's something like number 86 across the world in terms of faculties of humanities and social sciences. I'm in the School of Linguistics and Applied Language Studies. We have about 40 staff and a strong commitment to language teaching, English language teaching in particular, in the Asia-Pacific region. I've worked for 30 years in this area. I began my career teaching in China, and most of the students in our program are teachers from around the Southeast Asian region. We have a linguistics program, an applied linguistics and TESOL program, an academic writing program, New Zealand Sign Language Studies program. We have an English Language Institute, which is direct language teaching. So we have, pre-COVID, we had about 10 classes of students studying English to get into university. We have a Deaf Studies research project and a Language in the Workplace project. This is one of my classes from about 5 years ago. You can see along the front row a lot of students from Ho Chi Minh, from the University of Education, who joined our program that year. In terms of the nuts and bolts of our program, I don't need to go into too much detail now. and maybe the detail is going to confuse you. Let me just see what I want to say. Okay. I think you've already been, this has already been presented to you, but in terms of, if any of you are interested in our program, part one of the program is a postgraduate certificate in TESOL, which is done by distance, and there are 4 courses. And then part two is courses taught here at UFLS, and then part 3 is a final trimester of courses taught in Wellington from the table below. So it's a 3-part program that we are offering collaboratively with UFLS, with Da Nang University. Just to show you what our program looks like in a single shot, you can see the 3 trimesters, 1, 2 and 3. And in each trimester we've got courses in a number of strands. So one strand is about language teaching, another strand is about understanding language, and another strand is about understanding learning and learners, right? Teaching, language, learning and learners, and research methods. And so these are the courses in 2023 that we're offering across the 3 trimesters, and we also offer research studies courses, independent supervised research. So if you wanted to do a piece of research, if you're interested in moving into a PhD program, then it's a good idea to do a small research project and try and get something published. If you do that, you should also do some research methods courses. We try to be really practical. I mean, in a master's level, you have to deal with theory and complex thinking, but we also are committed to helping language teachers do their job better. And so there's quite a lot of courses in the teaching practice area. Listening and speaking in the language classroom, which is a course I teach. Task-based language teaching, a course I teach. How to teach vocabulary, and so on. The program is really flexible. It can be done full-time or part-time. You can begin studies at any trimester. Now, in terms of the collaborative relationship here, that won't be so easy. But typically, students can begin any time they want. They can move from full-time to part-time. They can do 1 course or 2 courses per trimester. It's very flexible. We teach in 3 different modes. All our courses are taught face-to-face in Wellington from next year, and online always. And also sometimes 2 courses per year are taught in Singapore as 2-week intensives. I mean, that's not so relevant to you, but if any of you can afford to live in Singapore for 2 weeks and you want to do an intensive course, and that fits in your program, that's something worth considering. COVID has had a dramatic effect on our ability to teach face-to-face. So for the past year and a half, we've only been teaching our courses by distance and now in Singapore. But from next year, we'll be going back into face-to-face teaching. So that's... I don't really want to take any more of your time. So I'm just going to finish there. That's our program. It's a Master's in TESOL or a Master's in Applied Linguistics. It's a Master's by coursework. It's practical. It's recognised internationally. And we have a really rich range of students or teachers in the program. The course that I taught last trimester, listening and speaking, I had 33 teachers in the course, and they were teachers from China, Norway, New Zealand, Japan, China, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, and I think some other countries as well. So the great thing about a program like this is you get to study alongside teachers from different contexts. you get to be part of a bigger community of language teachers from around the world, and especially from around the South Pacific. So that's all I want to say about the program. What's next? Hello? Does anybody have questions? Any questions?
Hello? Okay. So, it's time for questions. So, do you have any questions about the course? So we hear. Any questions about?
Is anybody who might be interested? Who's thinking? Yeah, who's thinking? Yeah, I might be interested in thinking about it. Anybody interested in visiting New Zealand? No. One? Thank you. One person's interested in visiting New Zealand. Yeah.
Okay. Sue?
Do you have a question?
So I have a question about the accommodation. So I want to ask that we need to find accommodation ourselves, or the university have dormitories or something like that.
Right. So the question is about accommodation. Yes, you have to find accommodation yourself, but the university does help. They provide an accommodation service, so that provides help for students, yes. But you can probably answer that because you had to find accommodation.
Yeah. So accommodation in New Zealand. Yeah. Okay. Is there international support service at at VIT, right? So I think all the international students, you can contact the international service at VIT, and they will help you everything from accommodation and visa, things like that. From my own experience, when I was in New Zealand, I studied at VIT too. There are two options. You can live in the university hall, okay, or you can go out and rent a house to live, or share the house with other students. Yeah, that's the options. You have a question, right? I remember you raised your hand. Yeah.
Hello. I want to ask about the tuition fee. That is one of the most important things when I'm considering joining the program. The first thing is about tuition fees of the whole course, or can it divide it into separate course, right? Separate semester, I mean. And the second part of the question is that how long will I live in New Zealand for the third semester? Thank you.
Right, so there are two questions there. The first is the most important question: how much does it cost? And the second question is, how long would I be in New Zealand? So I'm an academic, I don't deal with fees.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not cheap, is the only thing I know.
So this morning, the one person in charge of answering all the questions related to fee, but unluckily, she's under COVID-19 now. So I will give you briefly the information that I have, and please give me your contact. Okay, the university will contact directly to you. But just briefly for your information, so for the first 4 courses online by Victoria University, the fee roughly 6,632 New Zealand dollars. Okay, so 6,632 New Zealand dollars. Okay, and for the next 4 courses touched by the UFLS, it could be 48 million Vietnam dong. 48 million Vietnam dong. That's the tuition fee. Okay, and for the last one, the last 4 courses that you will study in New Zealand in person. Okay, and you will pay the fee for directly to Victoria University, and according to the fee, the official fee in the year that you enroll, you study. You see what I mean? Okay, and you will get 25% discount at the fees, because you join this program, so you have the 25% discount for the fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. That effectively, for any students coming into our program from this university, we offer a 25% scholarship, effectively.
Yeah.
So you're getting a 25% reduction in our fees. So private students pay a lot more.
A lot more.
But if you're coming through
25%.
this university,
That's
you
a lot.
pay it.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
There's a question up there. One of the things about being in an international program like this is that you're not just getting a qualification, you're getting an experience. And you're getting an experience which can sometimes change you quite drastically and which you will never forget.
Thank you. Hi, I want to ask from your own experience that I really want to know about the cost of living in New Zealand, and what's the difference between New Zealand and Australia, or with different countries. And thank you so much.
I mean, I can answer that. The cost of living, the question of the cost of living, unfortunately, inflation across the world is making the cost of living go up. In Australia, New Zealand, the UK, everywhere. It's quite expensive, right? To find information about the cost of living, the best thing to do is to go to the Victoria University website, and in the home page, you'll see a tab for international students. If you click on that, and you go down, it gives you information on the cost of living. So probably the best place to go is the website. In terms of Australia and New Zealand, kind of similar. It varies sometimes. Australia might be a little bit cheaper in some places, but more expensive in other places. So, many of the students who come to us, they study and they work at the same time, so they actually earn, because as an international student you can work up to 20 hours a week on your visa. So 20 hours a week can give you, the minimum wage in New Zealand is about 20 New Zealand dollars per hour. That's the minimum wage. You can't be paid any less than that unless you work illegally in a Vietnamese restaurant, which sometimes they do. So if you work that out, 20 hours a week times 20, so that's whatever that is, $4,000, $400 a week, $400 a week.
Okay.
In the past, I think some students used to save money when they were in New Zealand, but they would work so much. But I don't encourage that. Good questions. They were very good questions. Thank you. It's good to hear the questions because it shows me, or it tells me, what you're thinking about. Do you want to ask any other questions about New Zealand or about the program? Over here?
Yes, over there.
Now use my microphone.
Okay. Hi, and I have a question about scholarship policy. Does Victoria University offer international students any scholarships or financial aid?
Okay, thanks. This is a good microphone. Yeah, scholarships. There are scholarships offered by the university, but the 25% discount is kind of like a partial scholarship, if you like to see it that way. There are other scholarships. They are highly competitive. There are many international students who want the scholarships, but yes, there are scholarships. You need to just go to the university website and do a search for scholarships.
So we have Dr. Zhao Qi, the Dean of the Department of Teacher Education Program. So do you want to know about the courses? You can ask her. Yeah, you can ask in Vietnamese.
No more questions?
Okay.
So after graduates with the TESOL certificate, is there any chance that we can stay and teaching at the university?
Right, so the question is, after completing the program, can you stay and continue teaching at the university? The answer is no. I mean, you can stay in, I don't know what the visa, I think the visa allows you to work for a certain period of time, but I don't have expertise on that. But unfortunately, if this was a degree in engineering, you might be able to get some tutoring work, but in English language teaching, it's a bit harder to find work in the university. So yeah. Having said that, a number of the permanent staff in our international department are Vietnamese graduates. In fact, the leader of the enrollments team is a Chinese student who graduated from our masters 2 years ago. She got some part-time work in the international department. Then she got permanent residence, and now she's the head of the team. So her masters in TESOL led to a job managing international enrollments, and she's got a fantastic job. So, there are pathways.
Jonathan, so having said that, are there any cases for master students to apply for PhD? Scholarship and a position, and after doing a PhD, I think the doors are open for them to apply for a position at the university to teach. I can see a lot of my friends, I refuse to stay. If I agree, I would be in some of the universities in the UK. So I think that the chances can be open for you who would like to continue even further the studies.
Yes.
And whether it can be appropriate at your universities for students to go further into the PhD.
Absolutely.
In education, TESOL.
And I think at the early stage, if you're moving into a master's program, at the early stage, think very carefully about your 5-year and 10-year plan. Are you doing a master's in TESOL to become a really active and successful language teacher, maybe running a language school, making a lot of money teaching English, right? Or are you interested in a more academic career? Are you interested in doing a master's in TESOL so you can then go on to do a PhD and then move into an academic position?
Yeah.
And I think the reason I say you should think carefully about that is because you need to plan your master's around the direction you're going. If you're going into language teaching, focus on the practical courses. Become an expert language teacher. If you think you're interested in a PhD, then make sure you do some research methods.
Yeah.
And make sure that maybe you look at doing some kind of independent research project, if you can. Because some quite a lot of PhD programs, you have to do a dissertation or a thesis to get into the program. With our program, you don't. A number of I've had a lot of PhD students from Vietnam who have come through a master's in coursework and done a fantastic PhD. But it's harder and harder. It's competitive. It's possible, but it's better if you strengthen the research dimension of your masters early on if you're planning to go into a PhD program.
Thank you very much.
Does that make sense?
I think that makes very good sense. At the moment, we have two master students joining the collaborative training program between our university and the University of Wellington, Victoria University of Wellington. And one of the candidates have already gone to the very end of the master thesis in our university. So and she going to do the master thesis writing at the same time. She joined the program and she has already got nearly 4 courses. So by doing the research program and also the coursework program, she had already prepared herself and proceed very well in her professional career, in her professional developments. I remember when I was a student like you, I planned my career. And it is very important at the very end of your 4-year program, you think about what you want to be and where you would go, and there would be a lot of options. So your questions are very interesting, very critical in the time. But imagine we are teachers of English. It's hard for us to teach English to people from New Zealand, people from the United States, but you can do a very good job, excellent job in the country where we are from. You want to give back to the other generation, to the next generation. Having a degree in an English-speaking country, in a very prestigious university like this, one of the top universities in language training, in TESOL, in linguistics, would give you a very good background, makes you work with confidence. I got my master in Vietnam, but then I went to Australia to do the second master in university teaching and in education. And then I continue with my PhD. That is a lifelong journey. It would not stop from there. You can think about having a degree and go out for the job and come back to study. That would be a very good question, thinking about how to plan your career. And having a degree, making your investment now is a very good preparation for the future. So I could see a lot of 4-year students here, Bảo Trang or, I don't know, Diệu Tiên. I can't see them. Okay, yeah, a lot of them show that they are, I don't know. Have you ever thought of that? Yeah, so we got some they are very, I don't know whether they are thinking about that. Any other questions regarding visa? No? Các bạn không hỏi tiếng Anh thì hỏi tiếng Việt đi. Maybe they are shy.
Question over here.
Okay. You. Boys.
So my question is more about personality. So I have 2 friends. One of my friends is his goal is to pursue a PhD in this field, while the other she more interested in study in University of Applied Science. And when I asked them why did they choose so differently, they told me that it's more about your personality and what you want to see yourself in the future. So my question is, how am I going to find out which route is more suitable for me?
In terms of your personality?
It's like what qualities do I need to have that can help me suitable to become like a researcher in this field, or
a language teacher.
yeah.
Are you in English language training, or what program are you in?
I'm in the English for Pacific Purpose department.
English for specific
yeah.
purposes. Yeah, students in English for specific purposes, they are not especially trained for being a teacher. Right. But from my experience, a lot of the graduates from the program, they would like to teach English, because you are going to teach English everywhere. School children, in secondary school, primary school, language centers, university, colleges, and you teach English, and also you use English as a medium of instruction, teaching other courses as well. Yeah. And the very good way for you to identify what kind of job, make a list. You think and you sit down, try to find out, go into Howard personality types, and try to make a reflection of yourself and see the job available there and think about what direction you would go. Maybe now, because when you chose to become a student in ESP, you didn't realize, but later on, a lot of students have the part-time job at the TA teaching assistant in some of the language centers in Nẵng. And after for a few years, and they realize they love children. Yeah. And they make a shift, they make a transformation into becoming a teacher. I got my daughter-in-law from ESP departments.
I think if I can add to that in terms of personality, you know, I think if I understand the question, it's kind of what kind of personality do you need to do research?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's about personality. I think it's about what grabs your passion and your interest. And you can be any kind of personality. You can be shy, or you can be outgoing, and you can be a great researcher. It doesn't matter. What happens is, often in our program, we'll have students coming into the MTSOL in the first trimester, and they just want to be language teachers. They don't know much about research, they don't care about research, but after one trimester they discover research. They read these studies and they think, oh, that's interesting. And they discover that they've got this curiosity.
But you can have the teacher researcher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you do research in your teaching.
Yeah.
And we are teacher, we are researcher, we are professional, we are practitioner. We can do like multitasking, you understand what I mean? So,
well, in that regard, one of my PhD students, Yoshi Nishikawa, a Japanese language teacher, her PhD is on her experience of teaching beginners Japanese in one semester to absolute beginners using task-based language teaching. Yeah. That's her PhD. And it's a narrative. She's telling the story of her experience. That's a PhD. Sometimes people think a PhD is you develop a survey and you send it out to 1,000 people and you do statistics. Well, that's one kind of PhD. But a PhD can be understanding the teacher's thinking, understanding the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
I was just saying before about teachers who come into the program and they're interested in teaching and they discover research. So what some of those teachers do, they enroll in the Masters in TESOL, and at the end of trimester one they say, I really like research, and so they change, I don't know if this is possible here, to the Masters in Applied Linguistics. Same courses, but just different requirements. So that's something we offer. Whew, that was good. You had some good questions. I've got a couple of small gifts here, and I'm just trying to think how I can give them out. We should have a quiz.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it had on your program, it said a quiz. Okay, a quiz about what do you know about New Zealand? Let me think of a question. No Google, you're not allowed to use Google. What's the southernmost city in New Zealand? First hand up. The southernmost city in New Zealand. The southernmost city of New Zealand. Nobody? Okay, I'll ask another question. Can you name one famous New Zealand author, writer? One of the most famous writers of short stories? Okay, okay. Let me ask another question. What's a question? A famous New Zealand singer or musician. Yeah, they'll talk about the Prime Minister. But the singer you should know, she's about your age. And she wrote a song called Loyals. Lord, first prize of order. It's just a very simple notebook. So Lord, L-O-R-D-E. There you go, just a Victoria. You don't. Okay, Lord. I'll sign my name later. Yeah, sure. One more. This is a book I wrote about how to teach speaking. If anybody wants to teach speaking. So what's the question now? Who's the Prime Minister of New Zealand? A man or a woman? A woman, but yeah. Well, I don't know the Prime Minister, the President of Vietnam, so you can be excused if you don't know the Prime Minister of New Zealand. What's another question you should know? Yeah? No, you're not allowed to look at your computer, your laptop. Question time's over. Another question. How old is Victoria University this year? No, you can't have the same one again.
The answer is 125.
125 years old. Well done. So you get the book. Thank you. And just finally, just one more book. This is for the Dean. I would just like to give you one of my books for the department. This is my Routledge book on.
I will transcend the values in the book to the students.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I think that's probably the end of that. I appreciate you coming today. If you want to get in touch at some stage, get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you, but I'm sure the department can help you as well. Thank you, and all the best for your careers in teaching.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and joining us. Jonathan, I think you would go upstage and ask on the